All right, guys, welcome back. We are going to go over the um, schematic and quickly talk about how to translate this into something that works in the car and is functional because last you saw it was probably a rat's nest on my desk of wires and components and stuff all over the place. And we really don't want things to be all over the place in the car. We want it to be neat and organized and look pretty okay. So, just a reminder again, when we think about this steering contraption and method of controlling the vehicle, the heated steering wheel, we really think about we want to have five major components are going to go in and out of this whole circuit, right? You're going to have the plug for your switch, which will eventually make its way to the paddle switches. You're going to have a plug for your thermistor, right, which goes eventually into the steering wheel through the extra ribbon cable that we added to the clock spring. We're going to have always on power. We're going to have run accessory power. And then finally, we're going to have the wire that goes to the heating element over in the vehicle. So I've taken some time. I've done some work trying to make this into something that will fit okay in the vehicle. Oh, the other thing is we also want to be able to, if possible, access the box here in order to change the settings if we need to or want to. And what I've found, I'm going to switch over to my desk, is what I've found is this box is a box that actually I'll switch back to the screen. On Amazon, there is this Arduino case holder for the Arduino. It's clear. It's got this kind of vented system, and it's got these holes for plugs on the ends. And what I found is that actually works really well with the components. They fit nicely and snug in the box. There's a little bit of extra room here in case we need a bigger component than this box. And it's got the holes on the ends. And then, what you can do with a little bit of modification. So if you look here, I had to take the Dremel to cut a couple extra holes here so that I could have my wire sticking out. But if we look, once I set this up, it snaps, it closes nicely and gives me the ability to see my components. And then with something sharp or something long enough, I will use this to demonstrate my lead for my multimeter. You can actually reach inside and push the buttons. You'll be able to see the display through the case. So I actually really like this. It's good, and it will allow me to adjust the settings if I need to. It will allow me to make sure that the circuit is working with no issues while still being enclosed and safe inside of this. The one other thing I wanted to bring up in my adventures learning about the connectors within the vehicle were I always wondered why on earth Ford and I'm sure many other manufacturers would use multiple different connectors all over the vehicle, even if they have the same pin count. And what I mean by that is I get it if there's something that maybe is in a wet location and it needs sealed terminals and pins, or there's, some sort of specific configuration where it needs to plug directly into a circuit board. But what I found elsewhere is there are some connectors that you don't need to have multiple, let's say, multiple different connector variants or types, in my opinion, but they still opt to do that. And a good example of that for me would be something like the heated seats, right? So if I open up my connector list, and I'm going to show you guys this just real quick, is that when you get into looking at the heated seats, they tend to, let me see if I can find it actually. Oh, Is this one? Yeah, I think this is it. So in some cases, they will use a gray one with 4 pins. Oh, this is the LED. This isn't the heated seats. What's this one? Nope. Here we go. So, like, this one is the cushion heated seat, heating element. It's for where you're the part you're sitting on. And then if I scroll down here, this is the heated seat for the back, for your back. And I thought to myself, it's 2 pins. Like, why would you use 2 different ones? And what I found, if I go back to my desk, oh my God, I haven't been showing you guys anything. Oh. Well, just be careful when you have these connectors, because notice that I use the same connector here, the same connector here, the same connector here. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're looking at, you can't tell which is the always on power, which is the run power, which is the heating element. They all look the same. That's why Ford tends to use different connectors for different things. So, as well as here, I use these 2, simple connectors here, 2 pins, and I purposefully made one short and one long. And on the corresponding side on the clock spring steering wheel, one is long and one is short. So I know the short one will go into the long wire here, the long one will go into the short wire, and then they're ending up the same length. I did that specifically, and that's also why I made these come out of separate holes, so I know which one is which. I know this is my always on power, I know this is my run hot power, and I know this is my goes to my heating element. So again, it's just something to keep in mind as you work your way through building your schematic or building any sort of harness that you're going to build. It makes sense to use different connectors rather than one connector for everything, so that you can keep track of which one is which. And I'll just come back here so that you guys can see what I was referring to. Here is the green connector for the back, the cushion of the seat, and here is the gray connector for the bottom of the seat. And in my mind, I said, why not use the same connector for both? And it's pretty obvious, because it would become very easy to mix them up. So just something to keep in mind. All right, guys, we're coming down to the final couple steps to get this set up and get it in the vehicle. So what you see here is you see the full clock spring assembly with all the wiper switches, with the harness, with the converter box for our wipers. This is what will go to our multifunction switch. We have our harness set up so that it's taking all of the connection point from the bottom of the clock spring and the one from the 10-pin connector on the back over here, and it's coming down to what will eventually go into the connector in the vehicle, pinned out for exactly what's in the S197. And finally, what you see here is the combination of the paddle switch and the thermistor connectors that are going to go into the connector on the converter box, right? Or what I'm going to call my heated steering wheel control module. So if I set that over here just for now, what we can do is we can start getting this all hooked up. What you see here is here is my ribbon cable that I added. Over here is the ribbon cable that I added. I used electrical tape to hold it solid, and then I have it in with the rest of my harness so that it's nice and snug and isn't held by either the solder joints or having any sort of flex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my heated steering wheel. I'm going to feed my airbags right up through it. Be very careful once you're putting this in. Again, as part of a test, we want to make sure we don't damage anything. Not that we would, but just trying to be extra careful. All right, so now my heated steering wheel is seated. You see those two rubber nubs. So those are in. I'm going to move my converter box over here so that you guys can actually see the steering wheel. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start hooking up my heated steering wheel module. Now remember, the way I set this up is this is to my heating element. Remember, I have one short plug, one long plug. As I look through this, I have one short plug, one long plug here. So I am going to line those up, short to long on this side. Okay, short to long on this side. Okay, those are in. Then I'm going to plug my heating element in. So we see here's my heating element, here's my heating element. So now those are plugged in. On this side, I'm going to plug in. First, what I like to do is I like to plug in the ribbon cable because it's a little more sensitive and I can get in here a little easier when I don't have the large plug in. Okay, so that's in. Now I'm going to take my large plug for all the rest of the components and plug that in. So now we can see those two are plugged in. And last but not least, we want to go with always on and temporary on power for our heated steering wheel, let's say, module. Now, what I've done is I am obviously testing this in the house, so I want to be able to test both. So what I did was I created a Y. What this will actually be is this will still be used. It's just this end is going to go to the run start power. When I install this, this will go to the heated steering wheel control module, and this will go to the high beams. Remember, the high beam needs that run start power as well, so that's going to split. So, but for now, what I can do is I can use this to power both my always on and my run start power. It will just be treated as if it's always on. So I'm going to plug these two in. And what we'll see is now I have light. I'm going to move this over so you guys can see this in action. My momentary switch is waiting to be activated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this. I'm going to turn the light off so that we can see if the LEDs work. And, oh, don't forget, plug in your actual heating element into the clock spring. So the heating element right here. Okay. And now all I have to do is click this, turn it on, and it should work. And there you have it. Now, what I've done, just so you guys know, is I actually dismantled the paddle switches. And just to be fancy, I replaced the blue LED with a red one. So it kind of feels like that heat indicator. But what you can see here is, it's a little hard for you to make out, but we can see our temperature is increasing. So right now we're at 23.5. Maybe what I'll do is, I don't know if it will make it easier for you guys to see this, but let me remove the case off of this. And you can see it's at 25.3. It's going up. And I can feel my heated steering wheel getting nice and warm. All right, so it just hit 30 degrees Celsius. So now, if you guys remember, I set my limit. I know last time we spoke, it was at 38 and 40. Really, it's not 38 and 40. What it is you set the maximum temperature, which was 40, and then you set the lower bound variance. So it was -2 degrees. So if it drops by 2 degrees, that will allow it to kick back up. So right now we see it's probably just peaking or getting to about 33 degrees. And man, oh, that is nice and toasty. Nice and warm. Now what I'm doing is I'm just feeling my wires. I'm going around, and I definitely use the correct gauge wire. There's no, the wires are not getting hot, so I have no concern about anything burning, anything melting. That's because I used 18 gauge wire for everything. On the off chance that, you know, I'll be checking over to the next couple weeks. On the off chance that anything starts to feel a little weird, I will switch over to 16 gauge wire. It's just, honestly, I had 18 gauge on hand, and all of the documents and schematics on all data indicated that it was 18 gauge wire. So that's why I opted for 18. Yep, that steering wheel is nice and toasty at 37 degrees Celsius. So it's going to continue heating up. Now I did increase it. I decided to increase it to 41.5. It's, when I look online, they say the maximum you want to set it around is about between 42 and 44. The reason I chose 41.5 is because it does reach 41.5 and then it cuts off and it drops down to 39.5. The reason for that, and you'll hear it when we get to 41.5, I'll get quiet, is when it turns on and off, there is a relay click because it is turning on and off. And if you set the bound to, like, let's say 0.1 degree, you're going to hear click on, click off, click on, click off. And mechanical relays do have a limit to the life of them. And so I didn't care about the life. I really just didn't want to hear the clicking on and off and on and off. All right, so we just hit 41 degrees, so I'm going to get quiet as it reaches 41.5, and you guys can listen in. Okay, so you saw that light turned off, so now it is getting a little bit warmer because, again, the heating element is still warming the thermistor up a little bit. The steering wheel is nice and toasty. This is going to be awesome once it's installed. Now, just so you know, it is just, because the heating element is just inside here, the switches, all of that, none of that is getting warm, like literally at all. It still feels cool. And you can see here that this is starting to count down as it cools a bit. My lights turned off, indicating that it is not heating currently. And yeah. Okay, it hit 39.5, and now you see it kicked back on. My lights turned back on, so it's heating back up. And until I turn it off, it's going to maintain this temperature. So, again, as simple to turn it off, I'll just use my paddle switch. I can use the same one to turn it off. And you see, it cuts power to my contraption, which would pass the power. Or I can turn it back on with the other switch. When you see it turns back on, it's going to turn back up. I can turn it off. I can switch which ones I'm turning it on and off with. So that's it, guys. So now it's going to be a matter of running my always on power and my run accessory power. Once I get those set up, then we will be ready to install the whole thing into the car. And to be frank, I could probably install everything. I just would have to wait for it to become operational. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm just going to wait and then do a complete pull apart install video for you guys, and then you'll see exactly what it looks like. All right. Well, I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.